Welcome and thank you to everyone who has joined us for today's panel discussion. My name is Grace Okafor and I'm the Strategic Events Coordinator at the Institute for Ecological Civilization, or EcoCiv for short, a US-based international nonprofit. EcoCiv, in partnership with the British charity Reboot the Future, are excited to be hosting the program and series Conversations for a Life Economy. This project builds on Reboot the Future's 2020 Imaginal Conversations, a series of private discussions that examine our current way of life and seek to reimagine more positive and mutually beneficial relationships with ourselves, the world, and the environment. This project aims to bridge the golden rule and the core values that support a life economy to important initiatives and actions that are helping to actually bring it to life. Today, we are joined by three incredible panelists. Ornella de la Campa is the founder of Open Studios, a platform that connects independent designers and small brands to sustainable manufacturers worldwide. She has extensive experience in international business development. Ornella previously worked at luxury fashion house Oscar de la Renta and developed creative strategy projects for The Economist and its lifestyle magazine 1843. She earned her bachelor's and graduate degree from Boston College and University of California, Berkeley. Vanessa Arelle is a social entrepreneur focused on cultural strategy, developing frameworks, innovative spaces, dialogue, ecosystems, and connections. Since July 2020, she's held the role of CSO at BuffaloGrid, working in connectivity to bring digital prosperity to the unconnected and underserved with their Stream Spot Plus technology and service. From 2011 to 2015, Vanessa served as head of cultural affairs for Mexico and the UK. She was project director of Yoko Ono's Imagine Peace for the London 2012 Games and has been a regular contributor to Vogue Mexico and Vogue Latin America since 2014. Vanessa is currently a trustee of Fashion Revolution UK, a global movement that conserves and restores the environment and values people over growth and profit, and until recently a board member of Remake.World, a community of fashion lovers, women's rights advocates, and environmentalists on a mission to change the industry's harmful practices on people and our planet. Finally, we have Rob Holzer, who is a recognized visionary leader in the marketing world with over 20 years leading agencies. In 2011, he founded Matter Unlimited, a pioneering creative and strategic agency to drive positive, lasting change in the world by leveraging the power of advertising, digital marketing, and creative storytelling. Matter Unlimited helped define the purpose economy, and over the past 10 years has created award-winning work for clients, including Nike, Abbott, Maersk, UNICEF, the Obama Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, ABC/Disney, Kimpton Hotels, and TED, among many others. Prior to founding Matter Unlimited, Rob was founder and CEO of Syrup, which he created in 1998. And in 2007, he successfully navigated Syrup through their acquisition by LBI, now Digitas/LBI, part of the Publicis. Among other efforts, Rob is a founding member of the Civic Nation Creative Alliance, a group created by the White House under President Obama and now enduring with President Biden to connect key social initiatives to the country's top creative talent. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the floor to our moderator for today's panel, EcoCiv's President, Philip Clayton.
Thank you, Grace, and welcome to our audience members from around the world. What we want to do over the coming few minutes is to invite you into a private conversation. Here are three friends sitting with a glass of wine before a roaring fire. Each one of these leaders is involved with a transformative project with global impact. Tonight, as they kick back in front of the fire, they're asking each other about what motivates their public work, what transformative experience led them to do the leadership roles that they're carrying now, or what sustains and fuels their work against opposition on a daily basis, month after month and year after year. If we can get a sense of the people, then as we shift in a few minutes to their project, I think you'll get a much better sense of how they're involved in following these values for a life economy. So, Ornella, let me offer you some more Cabernet Sauvignon, and maybe to start in the beginning to say, what was it for you that brought you into this work? Something about travel, what was the kind of experience that you would look back to that motivated the work you're going to be sharing with us today?
Well, thank you, Philip. I would say I always knew I wanted to do something that had purpose. I knew that I wanted my work to have impact, but I wasn't really sure what that meant. And then about 5 years ago, I was on my way to Cambodia and I stopped in Vietnam, and I was staying somewhere along the coast, and I thought, wait, great opportunity to kind of go somewhere really secluded. You know, it was the first time that I was really traveling completely by myself, backpacking in Asia. And so I rode a bike and just about sunrise and found a really remote place, like this really remote beach. And I couldn't believe that it was the first time. I mean, I was already in my 20s, but it was like the first time in my life I had found a place that had kind of no human presence. I was there completely by myself, no sun chairs, nothing to suggest that there were people there, really. And, you know, I kind of really understood that. I sat down, meditated. It was kind of the first time I didn't have all these other things kind of drawing on my attention, and I could hear and see and feel everything, right? So I could smell the seawater, I could kind of touch the sand and hear, you know, the birds, like the leaves moving with the wind. It was kind of, it might sound kind of silly, but it was the first time that I had taken, or I had that opportunity to just be, you know, not rushing anywhere, not paying attention to my phone or to work or to anything else. And I think in that moment, just feeling kind of like the warmth of the sun and realizing that I was there by myself, I kind of go into the water and I guess, and to kind of really immerse myself in that experience. And I think I really felt that connection with nature. And in that moment, I really understood that regardless of what I did, nature had to be or play a big part in what I did. And then I think after that and a few other experiences that happened on that trip, that really informed everything that I've been doing since.
That's beautiful. Rob, I don't think I've ever asked you what was the motivation that led you to the work that produced Matter Unlimited and this incredible run that you've had over these last couple of years? Is that too personal of a question to ask?
No, it's fine. I often talk about it. People ask me that, you know, how do you get into this through the years, for sure. And, you know, I often say that it came from the great gift of suffering, which I think as a Buddhist practitioner, I think that that's one of the truths that are out there, that wisdom truly does come from suffering. And if you make the right choices from those experiences that you have. But I had an agency previous to Matter, and I had sold that agency, as you heard in the bio. And I went through the 3-year period of earnout. And as that was coming to the end, I thought I achieved everything I wanted. I was a big, successful CEO, supposedly on a global stage. And I proceeded to lose many things in life that were very, very meaningful to me. Those things started to happen really in a condensed period of time. I had watched the company that I had built slowly move away from me through having sold it. My first marriage didn't go well, and it was falling apart. And then I was losing my best friend to cancer at the age of 40. And so with all that information in me, I found myself really without an understanding about what I should do with the rest of my life at that point. And luckily, of course, I was blessed with some options. But I was really trying to think, well, what do I do now? In order to sort of go think about it, I went off to Brazil and got off the grid. I went to this place in the middle of the jungle that a friend of mine has. It's kind of a crazy, beautiful place in Itacaré. And it was just me off the grid, kind of like Ornella. And it was with a moleskin notebook and my guitar. And I was trying to think, you know, okay, well, what do I do with the rest of my life? And it was interesting. A friend of mine who was there was working on a charity for the Atlantic rainforest. And you know, the rainforest in Brazil, I think at that time, 11 years ago, there was only 6% of the Atlantic rainforest left. So he was kind of railing at the problem and shouting at his screen about, this corporate machine that's destroying the world and all of that. And I was just sort of sitting back and reflecting, and I was thinking, well, yes, there is a corporate machine, but the people within it, they're not necessarily bad people, but there is a system in place that probably should change. And because I was in the business of changing behavior for millions of people in marketing and advertising, I know how powerful this tool is. And so I started to think, well, could I actually create an agency, a team that could work with companies and the nonprofits and foundations that are doing great work out there, and only do that kind of work? Because when we did that in certain spots in my previous agency, that was when my people were the happiest, I was the happiest, and we happened to have a lot of impact. So I came back from Brazil with a lot of energy, and I said, I'm gonna start this new agency, and we're only gonna work on good things. And people really thought I was kind of nuts and out of my mind. And maybe 11 years ago, I might have been a little bit, because it did take a while for this purpose economy, as I was calling it, to really take hold. But that's where we are. We're here. The world is no longer going to sit idly by and let events take shape. All stakeholders are putting pressure on organizations now, from the financial community now to customers, younger generations, their own employees. If you're going to work within an organization now, it's really has become a license to operate, to be a company that is more conscious, to be an organization that is thinking more about these elements of impact. And, we get to wake up every day working on that.
That's so cool. So Vanessa, you're involved right in the launch of a major global project that we're going to be talking about as the show goes on. And I wonder how you possibly sustain the pace that you're living at, the travel, the pressure to be in the guiding seat of this project. What is it that keeps you able to go, keeps you able to do the leadership that you do? Is that too personal of a question to ask?
No, I think the important thing to be able to do in that case is to be present, to be very, very present. So, a question that we all get asked all the time is, where do you live? Especially if you're kind of bouncing all over the world and you're meeting people, or just engaging from different parts when you have a meeting one week and then another week. And many years ago, I met a remarkable woman who, when I asked her, where do you live? She said, in my body. And I have made it a conscious effort that I try to reply that, because unless I'm aware that where I live is in my body, this is my home in this experience. Sometimes you can get melancholic or feel displaced or require certain internal things that are not necessarily vital to what you're doing and to the work that you're doing. So for me, being able to be present where I'm sitting with what I'm doing is very important, and grounding myself in my body, in my experiences is probably, well, it's fundamental, it's vital.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular kind of practice that you use, or?
It's a mixture of experiences of many years of training. I trained in Kundalini yoga as a teacher, but I experiment a lot. I'm very, very curious. One of my core values is curiosity. So I like to mix and match, or cherry pick, as some would say. And it is a combination of Kriya, breath work, pranayama, yoga, physical exercise. It could be a mixture of anything, but I always devote a certain amount of time every single day to it. And if I don't do it, I'm actually completely displaced. And those that know me best would be like, my children have said to me at times, they're like, Mima, you haven't meditated today, have you? And I'll be like, no, why? They'll say, we'll do the dishes. You go meditate. So I've become, through practice and through just living day by day, so aware of how important that is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can I ask all three of you, what advice would you give others who are trying to find the courage to step out, to lead for change, to keep themselves going? What in your practice, or those other leaders you've known, gives them that courage and strength to do what they do?
Ooh, that's a good one. Can I hop in? I would say never take no. Never, ever take no for an answer. For me, it's one of my drivers. I love being told no, because then the little rebel in me or the activist in me would be like, watch me. So I think never take no for an answer, because that's only their perception. It's only their opinion. It is not necessarily yours. So, and there's when one door closes, a bazillion windows, ladders appear over the walls, other doors open. So you need to look for the opportunity always in the adversity. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, life kind of holds on to you, and sometimes you get caught up in it. And there's a phrase in business called golden handcuffs, and it's the idea that a company will pay you so much money, and you have now built a life around that money and that place, that it becomes so hard to leave. And I think a lot of people do get caught up in a certain one-dimensional sense of reality, or the way that life should go, or the way that their career should go, that taking the risks become more and more difficult as they go. So I think that letting loose a little bit on the reality, or the fixed reality concept that you can only do one thing, and you can only, you might be risking so much. And I think everyone has to be the judge of how much they're willing to risk. And it is a risk sometimes to walk into a new space. It was for me. So I think people have to understand, number one, what they can contain within that risk, but also hopefully they can get a little insight into the fact that probably those things that they think are holding them in a place aren't necessarily going to serve them the best.
That's great advice. Ornella, anything you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I love what was said, because I can relate. I think the first step is really scary sometimes, and thinking, you have all these doubts. Am I really doing the right thing? Do I really have the experience? Am I gonna kind of do the plunge, and then no one's really gonna come knocking at my door? And I love the not taking no, but sometimes hearing the no's also informs how you can do your best work. And it can also give you even more motivation, because I've heard a lot of no's when I started out. I still hear a lot of no's, but I've learned to kind of filter, right? So the ones that don't really matter, and the ones that are useful, right? The ones that come with some like constructive criticism, the ones that kind of push me forward and that make my work better. So I think for me, the biggest thing has been, once you get started, you'll be very surprised how many doors open, because you're looking for it. When you're doubting, or when you're not really working on something, and then you kind of just think about it, but you're not really manifesting, or you're not really drawing those things to you. But once you set your mind, once you have that goal, things will start coming. And it's not because they magically appear, it's because you are so eager to get started. You're so eager to find those connections, to build a network, to find those people, to get your work and do, have impact, that I think that's it. Once you just have to get started, and then all these things kind of start happening and drive you forward.
Sorry, Philip, just jumping in quickly, if I may, because I've known Ornella now for a few months, and I met her in the very early days of her project. And what is remarkable, what you're saying is, you get started and things start happening, but there's also something from the other side, which is her passion, determination, focus. Her work ethic is so contagious and so inspiring. And I think this is, others can really consider this, that there is nothing you can do but want to help. And when you're sitting there and you know how Ornella is, or what Ornella is doing, and all of a sudden you come across something that is interesting, you send it over. An opportunity to participate in something, you send it over. And I think we build these relationships throughout our lives, because that's when like-minded individuals or people that share values start, this synergy starts. There's a saying in Mexico that says, Dios los hace y ellos se juntan o se encuentran, which is God makes them and they find one another, or they join forces eventually, which I think is very adaptable or very applicable to people who share values, people of common values. But unless you act upon them, or you're doing something proactively, you can just dream about your values, but it's not going to do much, I think.
That's a beautiful segue to core values. And let me just ask each of you to name, what are the guiding values? What's the North Star for you? Kim Pullman often talks about the golden rule, especially adapted to include treating nature as well. But what are the core values that motivate the work that you guys lead in the world? Each of you.
I mean, I can start if you want. I think for me, it's pretty straightforward, or I've known it since day one. The most important one would be integrity. I think just living as honestly as possible, being as honest as possible with yourself and others. Community, realizing the power that you have in this togetherness, right? And realizing that we are all interconnected, and there's so much to be explored and done through that togetherness. No one, we have this culture now of kind of extreme individualism, and we don't really realize that it does take a village. Vanessa has been such a fierce supporter since day one of my project, and it's thanks to her and a few other people that I've really been able to get my work kind of off the ground. And then, as we were saying before, nature, right? Understanding, kind of restoring this relationship with nature as Mother Nature, as someone that really provides this sustenance, that is kind of a force that should be revered, and understanding its strength. So yeah, anyways, those are my three.
Others.
So sorry, Rob, ladies first.
Yes, absolutely.
I think for me, consistency is definitely one of them. It completely, flakiness is something that I cannot tolerate. It confuses me dramatically when somebody is not consistent with their behaviors or their actions. So consistency for me is fundamental in myself and in the work that I do. I also believe that with that, you can see it as discipline. So it's one and the other, which is required to be able to operate even in personal interrelationships, or personal relationships, or professional, or how you even approach life. Consistency is essential for me. And of course, creativity and curiosity. I believe that without those, you can't really go beyond the obvious, or just what we're expected to do or to be because of the society we grew up with, or the rules we grew up with. So for me, it's 3 C's. I always see them as my 3 C's.
Well, that's great. Both of you. That's the hard act to follow. But I'd say, at Matter, we have our mantra is action your purpose. And I always love that, because really the idea of action is really the important piece. And I think, we talk about, Buddhists will talk about it. You'll see it in your own life, and we talk about it in the work world as well. There is often, particularly in the impact space, there's often a gap between intention and action. And so we work to reduce that gap. Our jobs, our work every day is to help organizations reduce the gap between their intentions and their actions. And I do think that actions are the thing that matters. So as Vanessa said, consistency, but with action, talk and saying you're going to do something, or saying you're acting something, it doesn't hold much water over a long period of time. So it really, ultimately, our lives and our organizations are going to move through time built around the real actions that they're going to take, or you're going to take individually. So I believe actioning your purpose and reducing and constantly working on the reduction of that gap for yourself and then for your organization, and that will get you to a place where then your actions start to reflect a real deep sense of value.
So talking the talk and walking the walk.
Yes.
A lot of people say it's a lot harder to bridge between one's own personal inner values and the values of action in the world. It's a lot of people say, well, I've got my private values, of course, but then in the workplace, I have to do the things that are expected of me for my role.
Yeah.
You guys don't seem to follow that mantra.
Well, I think that mantra is changing, and I think that that's part of the problem, or the existential problem for legacy companies. You know, I think the younger generation, which we see out there protesting Fridays for the Future, we see the younger generation accepting gender fluidity and LGBTQ rights, and we see racial and social justice issues coming to the forefront for everyone, really, and there's a reckoning that's happening. So I think more and more people are no longer accepting just, hey, I'm going to go work for a company just to make money, or the definition of success is really starting to shift. And yes, that is not easy, and it's not all happening, you know, universally. You can go from country to country and you can see some differences, but increasingly people are fed up with that old model of capitalism, the old model of societal design, and that's changing and shifting. So if you are a company and you're a C-suite executive and you're thinking about your future, you have to think about this newer generation that is no longer going to accept the status quo. And if you're going to be an organization that's going to innovate, you need to attract and retain the best talent to do that. So I do think that that's loosening. And I think that, climate change realities that we're facing right now are bringing that to the forefront. The inequity issues that are facing modern society are bringing to the forefront. Racial and social justice reckoning that's been happening in America and elsewhere. These things are happening, and organizations no longer can sit on the sidelines and say, we're going to just sort of do nothing about it.
Is that right? Vanessa, Ornella?
I wanted to add to what Rob was saying, because I think, that is so true. And also not only a generational thing, but I think the pandemic really made us kind of take a step back and look at what our priorities were, what our values were, what we wanted out of life, what are the important things. And that's why now a lot of these big companies are having such a tough time retaining talent, because people have realized, like, why would I spend 16 hours, 12 hours, like crazy amount of hours working for this corporation? I don't feel represented. I don't feel like it really carries my values. So why should I keep doing that? So I don't, it's really strong sentiment in young people, but I think we are seeing that more and more. There's this awareness of what are the important things? What does growth mean, right? What does that mean for us and for future generations? Can we keep working in the same way that we've been working up until now, or do we need to kind of shift our mindset and have different measures for success? We need to maybe redefine what that means and whether growth is a part of that.
I think you're both completely on ball with everything. I think definitely COVID accelerated this awareness. And if you're not in the grinding machine every day, that you go into the office and you're kind of, cookie cutter, you do the cookie cutter thing, but then all of a sudden you found yourself at home in your reality, whether that was with family or you were alone and isolated. We couldn't leave our apartments. We could only go out, where I was, we could only go out, I think it was once or twice a week, to go to the supermarket. You weren't allowed even to go for a walk. So you couldn't touch nature. You couldn't see nature. So I think that the awareness that happened in this was because COVID didn't differentiate between race or social class or status or whatever it might be. It's affected everybody equally. It made us all aware in a way that normally we were living to work, living to work, and now we're kind of working to live. And I think that step back that we were all forced to take made a lot of people very much aware. Many people had a choice to be able to do it. Many people don't. But the awareness, the access to information, social media, sharing ideas, and all of that has accelerated the awareness. And I think it is a movement. It's a movement that we won't be able to stop.
I can't think of a better definition for life economy than working to live, rather than living to work. I want to turn the spotlight now to what it is that each of you is involved in 110% to try to bring about in the world. And Ornella, could I invite you in first, just to describe to us, I'll put it boldly, what is your biggest dream? What would you like to accomplish with your life, working to live?
I think it's gonna maybe sound very simple, but it's quite big. I just want to be a force for good. I want to know that everything that I've done has had a positive impact on others, to the extent that they might want to adopt or incorporate the same values that I have. So in a way, if I can do that, and then other people can kind of keep getting that message across, then I think we'd achieve really transformational change.
So introduce us to your project.
So I founded Open Studios about 2-3 months before we got locked down. And it's a platform that connects sustainable manufacturers with independent designers and small brands. And so the idea is to have all these players that want to come into the fashion industry do so as sustainably as possible, because someone that's an entrepreneur has very limited resources. They don't really necessarily have the knowledge. The people that they might come across when searching might not be the best partners. And so what we want to do is help these newcomers do so as responsibly as possible. We want to give them the best foundation possible so that as they establish themselves, they can kind of grow that strategy, maybe even become circular enterprises. But and then on the other side, also to support those on the supplying side that are doing things the right way. So artisans, cooperatives, not necessarily, also factories that have gotten certified, but it's not about that. It's about rewarding good practices and people that are putting in their bit to do better.
Vanessa and Rob, what questions would you ask Ornella? What would intrigue you about it? What advice would you give? Rather than my asking the questions, let's turn it over for you. We'll stick with our wine in front of the fireplace idea.
We've had those conversations. And one of the things, did you know, that I find fascinating is like, how do you go out and you find these artisans? How do you find these cooperatives? How do you move in the world? She was locked down. Literally, she came up with the idea and was developing the software. Next thing you know, she was locked in the house and couldn't go and meet people and see people. And she somehow did it. So like, how? That's my question. Like, how did you go out and find the artisans, the designers that were willing to participate? I find it mind-blowing. When I met her, I was like, wow, how did she do this? So how?
And I guess I would always have the same kind of related questions, which is how would you scale your impact, right? So how can something, when you take a model and it starts to work and it starts to develop and you want to make a positive dent in the universe and probably want to do that at scale. There's many people you could be serving with the platform. And so then how do you take it and what's going to help to throw some gas on that fire and amplify your efforts so that you can scale?
Both good questions. So to Vanessa's question, I think, my friends and family always tell me I do the work that no one likes to do and that everyone dreads, because it's like the really nitty gritty. I have to go and find information where people don't even think that that information is there. It's not necessarily mapped. These suppliers don't have websites. So then I have to kind of find associations, groups, fashion businesses. It's all about kind of building a network and through them establishing who these players might be. With artisans, it's a big challenge because artisans are not necessarily the most tech savvy people. So workshops and atelier are usually managed by people that work on computers and have that kind of knowledge. But with artisans in particular, that's quite tough. But we've been able to do that through associations that help artisans, and hopefully, as we work towards the next step for open studios, we'll find better ways to incorporate them onto our platform. In terms of scale, and this has been, I love that Rob asked that, because this has been a fundamental question for me. What does growth mean to me? What does scaling my business mean to me? If I'm really going to practice and preach about sustainability, scale is something that I really need to think about. We at the moment, we only work with small brands. So we kind of put a ceiling as to the maximum orders that number of orders that designers can ask for from our manufacturers. I think for us, growth is more on not necessarily just to keep making those connections, meaning not only staying as a platform that can make that connection, but that can help the brands make their sustainability roadmap, that can inform that sustainability strategy and kind of be a hub for innovation, right? Because as time goes by, we're seeing all these other things come into the market. And so I think it's about trying to keep those companies that work with us at the forefront. And that's how I see growth. I have to admit, it's not going to make me be Bill Gates or Elon Musk, but I decided some time ago that I was okay with that. And I have to be okay with that, because otherwise then, what makes me different to any other platform, any other agent in the business that's just like helping more and do more and produce more.
I see a consultancy business emerging here out of open studios as well for the big brands. I don't know about you, Rob, but that's what I see.
Let's get all three of your projects on the table and then see where you take each other once we have. For you, Vanessa, these are actually the weeks that a dream you've worked for years is emerging. Can you just describe what's happening in these days as we speak?
So BuffaloGrid, the company that I work with, developed a technology called the StreamSpot Plus, which is like a standalone unit that looks like a PlayStation that can be connected to a solar panel to run off the grid. So no need for mains power, that has preloaded digital content and services. So this is ideal for very remote, underserved or unconnected communities or groups of people, for example, in refugee camps or in very poor areas and in peri-urban areas in developing countries, one could say. So it's about giving access to digital services and digital skills that people wouldn't have otherwise, because the barriers for this are, well, affordability is the main one. So we do streaming and charging of your phone for free. Being able to charge your phone is another problem, so we solve that. People don't have digital skills. The screens on the little machine tell you how to download the app for free, how to connect to content for free. So we bring education and health, information. We can do entertainment and sports. So, I've been part of the team now for almost 2 years, but I was actually one of the early people getting involved in when it was a project as an angel investor. So this company has moved a long way, went from a bicycle generator in Uganda for coffee farmers to an imminent deployment. The units were shipped on Friday to Bangladesh. So we're going to have within 2 weeks, the first units deployed in Bangladesh, working with Robbie, the mobile network operator, and bringing, especially after COVID, that we know how the digital divide affects people much more and how it widened. To know that we're going to play part of narrowing that divide, of bringing digital skills, bringing access to digital services, digital education, because millions of kids have gone without an education for years now. We could almost lose an entire generation in the developing world. And also as a result of the work that we did to pivot during COVID, that all of our manufacturing delays because of the supply chain and shipping and everything, we started looking at the possibility of working in refugee camps with the displaced and host communities in sub-Saharan Africa and in the Middle East. So as the hubs are now being shipped, we actually have projects running in refugee camps in Uganda. We've got a commercial project running in Bangladesh. We just hired our first team member in Nigeria. So it's beyond exciting that we're literally today I had confirmation of the tracking thing that was leaving from the factory in the Philippines to Bangladesh, to our fantastic team member there, the first 25 units, and then in 2 weeks we get the rest. So it really is, we're there, we're just there.
It's so exciting to be in the moment when this is happening. Rob, Ornella, what questions or comments would you have for Vanessa? Oh, you're muted, Rob.
Sorry about that. I'm very familiar with Vanessa's project and BuffaloGrid. It's exciting to see it now coming into the world. I think for them, it's going to be, how, again, very similar question. How are you going to scale this project? And I know that they have plans on that. I've seen some of it. And this is one of those kinds of technologies that could be really, really game changing in a disruptive way in these communities. And there's definitely, opportunities to create amazing partnerships. That's one of the things I'd be thinking about. I know probably Vanessa is thinking about already. How can you develop partnerships and relationships with organizations already working on the ground in those communities to really start to bring it out to more people?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're right. The partnerships are what is key for the work that we're doing, and not just in terms of our content partners, but our deployment partners. And it's not just because the content is good here and then the deployment, they'll be able to help there. But what is fundamental of what we're doing is regional relevance. So our partners are key wherever we go. There is like a global universal concept and potential library that you can export to different places. But in each country, our partnerships are key for the way that we deploy, how we deploy, and everywhere we do have a focus on women to support women entrepreneurs. We saw in our trials in India that every shop owner that had a hub reported a 50% increase in revenues. So if we deploy hubs to women-run shops or cooperatives, then we know that that 50% additional revenue will be reinvested into their children, their education, nutrition, the community. So there's just little things we're learning that we can apply globally, but we know that in order to be able to find, local civic society, community leaders, we need to work locally and very much grassroots. So we're creating a hybrid of partnership style that we're working from multilaterals with little tiny organizations in refugee camps, and they are our eyes and ears on the ground, and they are our first locations for deployments, and then they're bringing their friends. And it's become a very decentralized, in a way, or democratized manner of collaborating really across the board. So, just looking forward to to all really materializing with the hubs on the ground. But for months and months now, the conversations have been flowing between groups of people that would normally not be collaborating or discussing. So partnerships are essential and the key to our scaling, Rob.
Yeah. Speaking of Rob, let's talk for a minute about Matter Unlimited. The organization is not brand new, but I have the sense that this moment is, that there's something about this moment that's a transitional moment for you. Is that true? And how would you name this moment in the history of Matter?
Yeah, I think that lately I've been saying Matter's an overnight sensation, 10 years in the making. And I think it's because of really a reflection of the moment we're in right now as a society, as a business, community, and Matter's feeling that very much. Our company is growing at a really a fast clip right now, and I think that we're taking a shot at really my original vision, which was to create the first global agency or consultancy of good, a purpose-led global agency and consultancy. And if we could do that, that would be an incredible model for the industry of advertising and marketing, that there can be a different way. And it's very interesting right now, actually, that there's many stories and a lot of energy that's happening in the advertising community around the responsibility of professional services businesses in relation to climate change, in relation to social issues that are affecting communities, because obviously advertising and marketing is a tremendously powerful tool that has been leveraged to sell a lot of people many things, and oftentimes also to good wash or greenwash the bad actors that are out there. So, Matter Unlimited, one of the biggest things, as we say, action your purpose, was to walk the walk. So from the beginning and up to now, we have only worked on purpose-led work. And it was only a hypothesis to me at the time that would organizations choose to work with us if all things were equal, because we're reflecting these values and they're sort of moving into that space, because very easily they could just work with another really smart consultant or another smart and creative team of people. But it is proving out that organizations are hiring Matter, not only because we have the team and the smarts and the chemistry and everything that's working, but it's because we are actually reflecting where they want to be going as an organization. And we have a diversity of people and thought that related to the space, and of course a specialty on it. So right now is an exciting time because we doubled our company last year in size of people and in revenue, and we're engaged in incredible projects across the 4 pillars that we say that we're working in, and health equity, education equity, racial and social justice, and climate opportunity. And we say climate opportunity for a reason. Across all those sectors, there's incredible amount of energy. The nonprofits that we're working with have, many of them receive unprecedented funding. The businesses that we're working with, have moved purpose into the center of their brand and into the C-suite. It's no longer this bolt-on additive solution called corporate social responsibility. Thankfully, that is moving away. And this work around ESG, environmental, social, and governance, has come to the forefront and is now something that companies are being measured on, that they're being tested. It's the #1 board agenda across all of the business community. So we are feeling that. Our team is doubling again before the beginning of the summer. And we are, moving into regions that we're going to be operating in order to just meet this moment. It's exciting in that way. And I think really just a reflection of where we are in the world.
Fantastic. Ornella, Vanessa, comments or questions? You be the conversation
I have
part.
questions for both, and I think I'd love to know what kind of, can you think of a really unusual partnership or industry, non-necessarily related to your everyday work, that you're excited or that would be kind of a dream to work with? Is there something that people don't necessarily connect with your business that you'd like to see happen?
Well, I can go. That's a great question. Many things are coming to my head because we have such incredible partnerships that come our way based on various relationships. But I think right now emerging technology is a really, really interesting space, and I think it has great potential for serious impact. And I'm talking about blockchain technologies, and I'm talking about Web3. And these are buzzwords. These are very, very nascent areas, but there are projects out there that we've seen, certainly within the blockchain space, that have great potential to address certain issues of equity around the world, potentially banking the unbanked and doing many, many things that can have a tremendous amount of impact, tracking health systems, all of that. But right now, there's a lot of energy that's moving in the other direction in the blockchain space too. So, these are all tools that come about, and then it's a question of how humanity wants to really use these tools. I think with the energy that we have now in the world and how people are thinking, my hope is that a lot of these tools are going to be used to really have some real positive effects. And we're talking to many companies that are trying to do that in the space, and we've dated a few. So I'm looking forward to meeting a few more that could be amazing partnerships for real impact.
Awesome.
The same thing for us, actually, Ornella, and the blockchain, particularly with the identity for the unbanked, for people that don't have medical records. We developed actually with 2 projects in 2 different countries that touch upon these concepts and these ideas. I mean, we have to develop the software for it, but in principle, it works through our units, so you can actually mitigate the cost of connecting people to the blockchain. Instead of, say, having 600 people with data costs and with a SIM card each, you can have 1 SIM card in 1 machine that can connect and be doing as a server, as an additional step in the process, but then you don't have the data cost involved in it. Obviously with super strict data protection and security and everything, but blockchain based for finances and for health. Are part of the concepts that we've been looking at, and predominantly within the refugee displaced space. Most of these people are people that just have to get up and go within seconds and cannot bring anything with them. So there's huge potential to help a massive demographic there. At the moment, there's over 84 million displaced people in the world, and that number is growing by the day. It's expected that by, I can't exactly remember, but 2040 or something, it will be 1 billion. So we really do need to start coming up with solutions for this huge chunk of humanity, and also think about all the children and the potential that is there in terms of raw talent and just, people. So for me, I think it's very important to look at these new technologies, and it goes back to exactly the same thing, which is it somehow decentralizes opportunity across the board. It makes it democratic, or it decentralizes opportunity and access.
A listener asks, can you describe a challenge you face and how you go about the process of trying to overcome it? What do you do when the challenges mount? What's your process?
For me?
Anyone? Pro listener.
Challenges. Well, it's been a challenge getting started. It was a complete challenge to, one of the things that I was doing before the pandemic started was that I would visit all manufacturers or before onboarding them to our platform. And obviously when we went into lockdown, that was no longer a possibility. So I had to kind of quickly adjust and reassess that process. I think for me, challenges, I want to address them as quickly as possible, but I don't want it to be just like a Band-Aid, right? And so a lot of the time that goes into finding the solution is to seeing how that's going to really impact everything that I do and my entire supply chain, so to speak, and then assess whether that's a solution or whether it's just going to be something temporary. I think for me, a challenge is always trying to see, is this solution going to be something that I can incorporate and it'll work for time to come, or is this like a quick fix? That's how I've been addressing challenges so far. But I'm sure, I mean, Rob and Vanessa have way more experience than me, so I'm sure they'll have really interesting tips to share.
We have time for one more brief answer to that one. Who would like to do it?
I can give a brief one on this. Work the problem. I think that challenges are inevitable. They're always going to come along, and you have to put the work in. Just get up the next day. The emotional part of being a business owner or running a company or running anything, I think, is tremendous. It's a roller coaster ride. And I think if you can, someone said, try and solve 3 things in a day, and just, you don't have to solve the world, but just keep working the problem.
Vanessa, I have to know what you think on this one. You face a lot of challenges.
Yes, I mean, I think I've gotten to a point where a challenge, I don't see problems, and challenges, I call them opportunities. So it just makes me kind of perceive them differently, approach them differently. And I will always try and go to probably the smartest person I know, or the one with most experience in that space, and ask for 10 minutes of their time, a little bit of advice, and then from there go on and make my own research and you know, work with our team, within our team as well. And that applies also to my personal life. You know, always go to the person that you know with the most experience for guidance and a little bit of a pointing you in the right direction.
That's beautiful. It's a 7-year tradition at EcoCiv to close with a question, and I'd like to ask this and hear what each of you think. It's the question, what gives you hope? Knowing the data of the world, knowing the world as well as you do as leaders, knowing the personal and the professional struggles. In the midst of that, I think the audiences want to know, as a leader, what gives you hope? What keeps you going?
I'll go. Knowing people like the ones on this call, having the privilege and the honor of knowing people such as yourself, Rob, Ornella, and others that have a collaborative spirit and a generosity of spirit, basically. That's what gives me hope.
I can go next if you want. I think what gives me hope I think for my work would be seeing the impact that I'm having, seeing the impact that our connections have, let's say, in the life of an artisan, but also knowing that we are all trying our best. I don't think most of us set out to be bad people or do evil. So I think knowing that we are all trying our best or to make the best of circumstances, that gives me hope that we can kind of do better.
I'm thinking back at it's ironic. Hope was a big word for President Obama, and I worked on you know, some of that work. And I think the 3 words that he used to say, hope, act, change, I think they resonate for me. Really, hope and fear are dangerous on both sides, but action really does become the great changer, the thing that can change the world and move things forward. So moving your own hopes and dreams into action would be my hope for the world, for most people, and for all of us as a society.
What a great closing word. This has been an incredibly rich discussion. And I think it has been because all 3 of you are people of action. You are acting boldly on global stage toward radical transformation. And it was a privilege to get some sense of what makes you tick in your daily life, what your transformative experiences have been, what are your driving values, and then just to begin to get to know your projects. And on behalf of the audience and myself, I want to say what a privilege it's been to spend this hour together. With that, I hand back to our host, Grace Okafor.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to all our panelists and attendees globally. It's our hope that you all will continue this journey of reflective conversations, and that the insights of these programs inspire you to take action towards a just and sustainable future. We encourage you to follow this project by signing up to both the EcoCiv and Reboot the Future mailing lists found on our websites, as well as our organization's social media for updates on our next event. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.